March 11, 2011. A normal day, until it wasn't. At 2:46 p.m., the ground beneath Japan didn't just shake, it roared. Offices rattled. Roads cracked. Buildings swayed like they were made of paper. Phones dropped. People froze. But this earthquake wasn't the real danger. It was only the warning. Because far out in the Pacific Ocean, something invisible had already begun. The seafloor had violently shifted, displacing unimaginable volumes of water. A silent force, racing toward land at the speed of a jet. A tsunami. At first, the ocean didn't look terrifying. In some places, it actually pulled back, exposing the seabed. Boats tilted awkwardly. Fish flopped in the open air. Curious onlookers stepped closer. They had no idea what was coming. Minutes later, the horizon changed. It wasn't a wave you'd see at the beach. It wasn't something you could surf or outrun. It was a wall. Dark, rising, endless. And then it hit. Entire towns vanished in seconds. Cars were tossed like toys. Houses were ripped from their foundations and carried inland. The water didn't just flood, it consumed everything in its path. People ran. Some made it to higher ground. Many didn't. The speed was brutal. The force was unstoppable. Even buildings designed to withstand earthquakes couldn't survive what followed. The tsunami smashed through defenses, overwhelmed seawalls, and pushed miles inland. It didn't stop at one wave. Wave after wave followed, each one carrying debris, destruction, and devastation. Fires broke out as gas lines ruptured. Entire neighborhoods turned into floating wreckage. And then came the silence. Where cities once stood, there was nothing but mud, scattered debris, and an eerie stillness. But the disaster wasn't over. Because along the northeastern coast of Japan stood a facility designed to harness nuclear energy, the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. It had survived the earthquake. But it wasn't built for what came next. When the tsunami struck, it flooded the backup generators that powered the plant's cooling systems. Without cooling, the nuclear reactors began to overheat. Inside, pressure built. Temperatures rose. And then, explosions. Hydrogen blasts tore through reactor buildings, sending radioactive material into the air. Workers scrambled to contain the situation, risking their lives in conditions that were growing more dangerous by the minute. Entire communities were evacuated. Families left their homes, unsure if they would ever return. The disaster had now become 3 in 1: earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear crisis. The numbers that followed were staggering. Over 15,000 people lost their lives. Thousands more were injured. Entire towns were erased from the map. More than 400,000 people were displaced. And the economic damage? Hundreds of billions of dollars. But numbers don't tell the full story. Because behind every statistic was a person. A parent searching for their child. A child waiting for a parent who would never come back. A family standing where their home used to be, staring at emptiness. Some survivors described the sound of the tsunami as something they could never forget, a deep, relentless roar, like the earth itself was tearing apart. Others spoke about the moment they realized there was no escape. And yet, even in the face of unimaginable loss, something remarkable happened. People helped each other. Strangers pulled strangers from the water. Communities came together, sharing food, shelter, and support. Rescue teams worked around the clock, searching through debris for any sign of life. There were stories of survival that seemed almost impossible. A man clinging to the roof of his house, drifting miles out to sea before being rescued. A young child found alone, wrapped in a blanket, surviving against all odds. Elderly residents guiding others to safety, even as danger closed in. Hope, in the middle of chaos. But rebuilding would take time. Years. Even now, some areas have never fully recovered. The Fukushima disaster left a lasting impact. Radiation forced long-term evacuations. Entire towns became ghost cities, frozen in time. Efforts to clean up and contain the damage are still ongoing. And the ocean, it carried the story far beyond Japan. Debris from the tsunami traveled across the Pacific, washing up on distant shores. It was a reminder that disasters like this don't stay in one place. They ripple outward. So what made this tsunami so devastating? It wasn't just the size. It was the speed. The lack of time. In some areas, people had less than 10 minutes to react. 10 minutes between normal life and total destruction. Early warning systems did activate. Sirens sounded. Alerts were sent. But when nature moves at that scale, even the best systems can't guarantee safety. And yet, lessons were learned. Japan has since invested heavily in stronger defenses, better warning systems, and improved evacuation plans. Coastal communities now have clearer routes to higher ground. Technology has advanced. But one truth remains unchanged. Nature cannot be controlled. Only respected. The 2011 tsunami wasn't the first in history, and it won't be the last. But it stands as one of the most powerful reminders of how quickly everything can change. One moment, life is normal. The next, it's not. Imagine standing on the shore, watching the ocean pull back in a way you've never seen before. Would you recognize the warning? Would you know what to do? That's the reality millions faced that day. And for many, there was no second chance. Today, memorials stand where towns once existed. Names are remembered. Stories are shared. Not just as a way to honor those lost, but to ensure the world never forgets. Because forgetting is dangerous. Awareness saves lives. Preparedness matters. And understanding the power of events like this can make the difference between survival and tragedy. The 2011 Japan tsunami wasn't just a natural disaster. It was a moment that reshaped a nation. A moment that showed both the fragility of human life and the strength of the human spirit. A moment that will never be forgotten. And as the ocean continues to move, as tectonic plates continue to shift beneath our feet, one question always remains. If it happened again, would we be ready?